Hey guys, nice to be here this week talking about the Oxen Hardfork. I'm going to introduce a few changes to the session storage server, which is going to affect session in a few ways, and a few blockchain changes as well. So I thought it would be good to come and talk to you guys about it. The actual dates, on the 31st, we will be releasing the new packages, the new service node packages, so that'll include a new package for LokiNet, a new package for the storage server, and a new Oxen as well. And we will actually, the hard fork will be occurring on the 14th of next month. So, yeah. Yeah, so the reason an Oxen hard fork will affect session is because the session network, or the storage servers for session, are actually Oxen service nodes. So they're all kind of interconnected in a certain sense. And in this hard fork, we're actually going to make some changes to the Oxen storage server, which is where session messages are stored, particularly in the way that we kind of address or put those messages into different inboxes is going to change, and we're also going to change a bit of the authentication mechanism that we use between session clients and the Oxen storage server. So that's the reason that we need session clients to update and do the work that we're talking about today. Yeah, so the actual changes that we're making on the storage server, they won't actually be noticeable to everyday users of session. The first change that we're making is we're forcing there to be authentication between the user when they retrieve a message from the storage server from their own swarm. And this basically makes scraping harder from the storage servers. So people who don't have your private key aren't going to be able to just request all of your encrypted messages from the storage server. But that change happens from a session client perspective invisibly. We just, in the session client, start signing the request that we're making to the storage server. So there's nothing that you actually will see when you're using the session client. And the second change we're making is basically to add these different inboxes on the storage server, so we can better sort some messages and better be able to manage those messages as well. So right now, session has different types of messages, like configuration messages, one-to-one messages, and closed group messages are some of the ones that we talk about. When we introduce these new inboxes, the session client's going to have new ways to manage configuration messages, one-to-one messages, and closed groups. So that'll mean that we're hoping that it'll improve reliability around configuration messages, which are causing some open groups to be added and re-added in strange circumstances, but it'll also give you more granularity, which we'll add in at a later point in time, to say delete all of your config messages or delete all of your one-to-one messages that are in your swarm. So we will be adding some new features tied to the features that we're adding in this hard fork, but mostly it's just kind of behind the scenes stuff that we're working on here. Yeah, so the most major changes to Oxen are rewards batching and the new contribution rules that we're actually doing for service node contributors. So rewards batching basically provides a way for someone who's, well, we're using it in multiple circumstances, but the kind of easiest way to explain it is that if you're running multiple service nodes, say you're running 10 service nodes on the network, previously you'd be receiving a reward every block that you are actually the block producer in that block, then you'd be receiving a reward. I think it would be every 1,800 blocks or so right now, because there's 1,800 service nodes. But say if you have 10 different nodes, well, you'll be receiving about 10 rewards every 1,800 blocks or so. And that creates a bit of overhead on the blockchain in terms of there's an individual transaction for each time you receive a reward. We wanted to be able to cut that down. So instead of receiving rewards for that entire, or instead of receiving individual rewards for each service node that gets rewarded, you'll receive a reward every 3.5 days for every wallet that is registered a service node. So say you've registered 10 different service nodes under the same wallet, then you would receive one reward every 3.5 days for that individual node. So it kind of makes things more compact on the blockchain side of things, and it will reduce some of the bloat, because the majority of the transactions that are occurring are service node transactions, reward transactions. So if we can clean some of that space up, we can reduce the amount of transactions that are actually occurring on the chain. So yeah, that's basically the concept. Yeah, so we've wanted to raise the contribution amounts for quite a bit of time now. 4 kind of limits the amount of small contributors there can be, and there's a lot of people that are hanging around with a small amount of Oxen that might want to get a position or a node. The previous issue that we've been running into is you could have a small contributor to a node who would put in a very small amount, say like 100 Oxen or something like that, and then remove that amount from the node, and then the node operator has to go to the effort of restaking the node again, finding new contributors. But we think we found a good solution, or a good midpoint for that, which is basically that contributors under a certain amount in the new setup that we'll have with the contribution rules, they'll be limited in terms of when they stake, they'll have to lock themselves up for at least 45 days. So essentially, they'll still have the 15-day unlock period, but then there's a 30-day period ahead of that as well. So really small contributors are going to have a little bit more, there's going to be a little less leniency around them unstaking. So we think that's why we can move up to 10 contributors this round and provide a lot more flexibility around people who have a small amount of Oxen but still want to be involved in the service node network. Yeah, so in the Hardfork, we'll be releasing a new version of LokiNet. We are particularly focusing on service node to service node communications in this release, and kind of techniques that are going to improve the service node layer of LokiNet particularly. So we're probably not going to see this release have any client improvements, as in this release will be mainly for service nodes. It can be used on clients, of course, but it's probably not going to improve the client experience that much. It's really focused on service node side things. So yeah, improving to service node communications is important for stuff that we're going to be doing on the lib LokiNet side, and something that we've been focusing on for this release. So probably won't affect the day-to-day client use if you're using LokiNet that way, but it'll be a big step for Session coming down the line when we integrate LokiNet into Session. Thanks guys for listening to what I had to say about the Hardfork. A reminder, we will be releasing binaries for all service nodes on the 31st of this month, and then next month, 2 weeks later, or 2 weeks later from the 31st, that'll be the actual Hardfork when the Hardfork occurs. So yeah, make sure if you're a service node operator, to upgrade, and we'll be pushing out some information about Session as well over the Session channels too. There shouldn't be too much of an issue there in terms of getting people to upgrade, just because we've got such a long lead time. But yeah, thanks guys for listening and upgrading your nodes as you do. Thanks.